Call to order the regular board meeting of Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by the board. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Barry is here.
All members are present. Item number 4, presentations. There are no presentations
Excuse
tonight.
me, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
We would like to know, we know that it's a little bit unusual, but we'd like to know if you could allow a presentation. We do have some minors here who would like to know, it is a school night.
Absolutely.
Like to know if they could speak.
Sure. There is a presentation. Treasurer Elliott.
Supervisor Acciavatti, good evening. I am here on behalf of the many children who live in Chesterfield Township. I was born here and I grew up watching the many changes. I remember when the Catholic high school was an elementary school, when there was a motel in the corner of 23 and Gratiot, and very limited options for kids like me to play outside. Although the most impactful part of my childhood growing up here in Chesterfield has been watching all the airplanes fly over my house, my mom would often have to drive us to other communities to do outdoor activities. I remember when the splash pad first opened. It was one of the first locations in Chesterfield that was a friendly place for kids. Oftentimes, adults forget that in most of the township, kids can't really just go outside and play without getting a ride from an adult, and that's not always easy. Mr. Acciavatti, it is your recognition of the need for safe, non-motorized paths and family activities that has been so impactful to the lives of us kids. You have been a great visionary which has forever changed our township for the better. You have worked with the Weber family and others to give us the paddle park. My friends and I can now drop kayaks in the Salt River and enjoy the wildlife like the cranes, ducks, and turtles. My brother and I caught over 100 perch ice fishing at Weber during the lockdown this past winter. Supervisor Acciavatti, you worked hard to get the Salt River Nature Center for us and remove the fence, which gave us a place to walk and explore. The shoreline along Brandenburg Park is beautiful and would be a great place for us to proudly take our prom and senior pictures, learn about our responsibilities to care for our lakes, and enjoy time with friends and family. Mr. Acciavatti, thank you for recognizing the importance of having safe places for kids to fish, ride bikes, learn to kayak, and take walks. We appreciate having various opportunities not only to get fresh air, but to learn about government through Bring Your Kid to Work Day, which you support. I sincerely want to thank you for your passion to provide safe places for kids to learn and play here in Chesterfield Township. Today, I would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation for having a vision for our future.
Thank you.
Can we have you come down, Supervisor Acciavatti?
Sure.
And then can we get all the kids?
Thank you. Department reports. One quick one from me. I want to make a introduction. My wife, Michelle, is in the audience. We met 30 years ago, been married 20 plus. My son, Dino, who, when I finished up my last experience as a public servant in the Michigan legislature, joined me for a day on the floor. He doesn't remember that because he was 8 months old. He's 13 now, and my daughter Caitlin. They came to this meeting because they were going to be out of town for the next one. And serving the public in a role like this is it takes all of you and all of who you are, and a lot of that comes out on the family, in the late nights, in the weekends, in the stress. And I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for being there with me on this journey. Any further department reports? Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The state special primary election will be held on August 3rd, 2021. Ballots for that election will be available in the clerk's office on Saturday, June the 19th. That will be the soonest that they will be available. The clerk's office is not open on that day, but that following Monday, regular business hours, those ballots will be available. AV ballots will also be mailed and issued to those who have requested them that next week, the week of June the 21st. The special general election will be held on November the 2nd, 2021. If you submitted an absentee ballot application and indicated that you would like a ballot for both elections, you will not need to submit an additional application. However, if you only asked for a ballot for August, you will have to request another one for November. Also, an update from the Cannabis Commission as well. Cannabis Committee met and will be meeting again in the month of June. That date is still yet to be determined. Thank you.
Any further board members wish to update? Trustee Domingue.
This is from Leisure Services. Mighty Mites is a perfect introduction to sport of baseball. This 4-week fundamentals program will keep your tots moving. Boys and girls ages 3 and 4 are invited to enroll. Program will begin the week of July 12th and hosted at Pollard Park. Cost is $40 for resident, $45 non-resident, and registration takes place in person or online at parks.chesterfieldtownship.org. Next, bring your lawn chairs, blankets, and snacks and gather at the Chesterfield Township offices for some outdoor evening family fun beginning on June 22nd and continuing for 6 weeks on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Movie series tickets kicks off with the showing of Mona. Thank you, sir.
Any department heads? Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Yes, good evening. Just so you're aware, tomorrow morning, we're going to start as a part of the Anchor Bay Pump Station study, pulling one of the pump shafts, as we talked about earlier this winter. So you're going to see a large crane overhead that station as we pull a 30-foot shaft out of that building. So you'll see a lot of departments, trucks on site, so it'll look like there's a lot of people there, but it's a really huge undertaking, so just keep in mind we'll have a lot of vehicles over there as a part of that study moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further department reports? Item number 6 is the consent agenda. Clerk Berry, please read.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 6A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 25th, 2021. 6B, approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary. 6C, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. 6D, approve a recommendation to pay the Michigan Township Association annual dues from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 in the amount of $7,042 from GL number 101-248-828000.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg,
Mr. Supervisor, I would ask, I would support the motion.
support by Trustee Joseph. Discussion.
Well, there's no discussion. I was asking for the removal of consent agenda item B to be considered separately.
Trustee Vosberg, will you amend your motion? Okay. Motion by Trustee Vosberg, support by Trustee Joseph to approve the consent agenda minus item 6B. Discussion. Comments from the public.
John Spica, 53978 Connor Drive. I have a question for the Treasurer's Department, which would be Miss Elliott on this one.
Which one? Which item?
I'm getting there. Relating to the bill run number 101-248-956. It's reimbursement of $2337.41 for 6 Rivers winter tax bill for Hooker Road. My question is, if the property is tax exempt, Why are we doing a reimbursement on that parcel? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? We have a motion by trustee Vosberg, support by trustee Joseph, to approve the consent agenda A, C, and D. Item B will be discussed after this. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 6B, which is the agenda. Do you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to approve the regular... Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular agenda with the removal of regular agenda item B.
Motion by trustee Joseph. Is there support?
Support.
Support by trustee Anderson. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, if I may. Regular agenda item B has no place on our agenda, primarily due to the instructions that we received from Attorney Siebert, not only at our last meeting, but subsequent emails that came to the board. The board had the distinct instruction that we had the ability, with your resignation at the last board meeting, to appoint a committee, to nominate an individual, to develop a process. We were given timelines, both up to your resignation, 30 days, and a window of 45 days post. What's transpired over the past week is a very, well, I'll limit my adjectives, but a very distasteful and I would argue not legal process. It was enacted by one board member. It was done in a way that committed not only excessive township resources, videos that were shot. The office was opened. The township offices were opened. Township staff were forced to come in to receive whatever it is that the clerk thought was going to be a recruitment drive or of some sort. And none of those expenditures, none of those action items were discussed, much less approved by this board. Very clearly, at the last board meeting, I indicated that I was planning to bring forward, and I asked for some support from fellow board members to bring an agenda item forward. I did that in accordance with APO 04-2018, specifically that the requested agenda item was brought to the clerk's office timely. It was brought by noon of the 7th day prior to the board meeting. When I inquired about the posting of the agenda with the clerk's office, I was advised by the deputy clerk as late as Thursday of last week that we were still awaiting something from Clerk Berry. She brings forward this agenda item with candidates that I think are it's very unfair to suggest to them and mislead any candidate with the idea that somehow the township has approved the process. We very clearly have not approved the process. We haven't even deliberated on a process. So a slate of candidates that come forward through her recruitment drive is inappropriate, I would argue illegal, and should be removed from the regular agenda as to not confuse anybody with regard to this board's absence of approving any type of process. So again, I would ask for support to remove the regular agenda item B and pass the remainder. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not support amending the agenda and removing that item. I do understand your concerns, some of which I think are correct and some of which I think are not, and I'll explain. Essentially what you have is 6 members of the board, because I will not be voting, I'm not able to by statute on my replacement, having their own process for the who and the why and the what happens for the replacement. That item being on the agenda is not something that I put on the agenda. However, Clerk Berry did. Just like the item that you put on the agenda, you only put on the agenda. If other members wanted to put items on the agenda, they have every right to do so. And the fact that it's on there, it gives us the only opportunity to hear from anyone who is actually interested in being considered by this board. And the item that you submitted will be considered right behind it. So I support keeping both items on the agenda, frankly, and I was up in the air after the last board meeting if I wanted any action on it, because there was no clear board direction moving forward. However, that doesn't take away the right for an individual board member to place an item to have folks discuss it. So any further comments from the board? Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just to clarify some points that those who aren't familiar with the process may be confused about. A couple of things. First off, there was no recruitment drive per se. It was an informational video that was sent out to notify all eligible individuals in the township of the board intention to consider individuals for the appointment. The method by which that was done is a bit unique and different only because of the advent of social media and digital communication. However, the process itself, this township has actually gone through several times. And the process that has been used in the past when there have been vacancies is very, very similar to the process that's been utilized this time. The only difference is they did not have social media then. The examples in which cases that this happened, when we had the passing of Clerk Connie Bowles, and there was an appointment of Kelly Jo Smolarek at the time, who became appointed clerk. Also, we had a supervisor candidate in the 90s, a supervisor who vacated the office, and there was a special board meeting held. The public was notified, there was a special board meeting held, and then there was a process by which people submitted their letters of interest to the clerk's office, and then those were forwarded to the board for consideration, and the board then considered them and made their selection. There was also a trustee position that was filled, and former Treasurer Hartman is very familiar with when she was actually the successful candidate through a very similar process as well. So all of these have always been handled by the clerk's office in very much a similar fashion. The only difference here, again, is the advent of social media and the utilization of that. In addition to that, we did not call a special board meeting. We're actually handling that business at a regular board meeting. So those are really the only two differences in the process. It's a generally accepted process. I was not intending to have to kind of fast track it. However, I received a notification from Human Resource Director Duchesne that he was going to be asking for individuals to send letters of interest to an email and email them to us. And when I received that, then I went ahead and implemented the program and the process and protocols that Chesterfield Township has followed every time there's been a vacancy. They've varied from very little from those particular protocols, but we enacted the same ones. To suggest that we have never done that or that it is somehow inappropriate is flatly incorrect, because in fact that is the way that we have managed these situations in the past. So, and these things have always been done by the clerk's office. So again, nothing unusual except for the media and the method, which we were very happy to have access to that, and we do utilize that as an information dissemination for a number of items, and this was no different. So process very similar, and we simply have done what was done in the past.
Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. 2 weeks ago when we had this discussion, I know Clerk Barry cited 3 examples. I think 2 of them involved the clerk's department as far as shepherding this process. As I recall, there was no concrete mechanism set in place. I even mentioned that this process, the 6 board members that have to make the decision for the replacement, should be free of elected officials and politicians. We have a freestanding H&R department that we have not had in the past. Expert people there. Some of the candidates came through that process. I don't know why someone had to reach out and create a Facebook presentation, 5-minute little show there, giving the impression that this was the official clerk's position. Whatever the motivation was. We have an existing procedure to use that I felt was using H&R, and as I recall, closing the meeting, there was no concrete mechanism set in place. Somebody went on their own and set up this process. Thank you.
We have a motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Anderson. Is there any further, hold on, let me just read the motion, I'll let you go again. To approve item 6B minus item 7B of the regular agenda. Any further comment? Trustee Joseph.
Yes, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I think the position. Thank you. I think that the position that trustee Anderson raises is exactly why this board was reluctant to dive down into what the process would look like. As he stated, he thinks it should have been handled by Human Resources. As Clerk Berry represented, it should be a clerk function. But what she said in her response to my motion was that she used the word process at least a half a dozen times. It's significant because she relies on her process as being an appropriate board process because of what she's deemed to be some historical reading of the examples in the past. We do not have, according to MCL 168-368, the ability to utilize past practice as some type of roadmap to do whatever it is that she wanted to do. It created a circus. It was carnival-like. And what's more important to me than that is the fact that the candidates who apply with the idea that they are participating in a township-sanctioned process. This was one rogue board member. I guess for time's sake, I heard your position, Mr. Acciavatti. I guess I would just like to understand from the attorney if this is an accepted board practice, and if the opinion of the attorney is that this is not a board action, that this is Clerk Berry's action, I'll simply withdraw the motion and we can do whatever it is that she wants to do tonight. But I'm curious to know legally where we're at.
Well, as you indicated, I did send out an email, but the email was in response to the clerk's direction that I review and modify a notice of vacancy that was sent to me for review. The notice that was sent to me had been prepared by someone in the clerk's office, and I did not think it was accurate, and I didn't think it accurately set forth the law, and so I made some changes to it to comply with existing Michigan law, and I sent it back to the clerk's office, and I intentionally copied every single board member with it because I was concerned that I was being directed to prepare a notice that the board had not authorized. And while I agree with Clerk Berry that any of these procedures are legal, my concern was that the process of how to fill the vacancy is a decision of the township board. And while this is not illegal by any stretch, and the board could certainly consider item 7B, my view is it's a board decision as to how to proceed, and I thought at the last meeting there was discussion on that issue but no decision. The board could not come to a consensus as to how to proceed other than that trustee Joseph would be making a motion at this meeting, and depending on how that motion went, we would live to fight another day as to whether or not there would be some process implemented tonight. So it's not illegal, but it's clearly not board authorized. So with that background, I hopefully answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. Siebert. Mr. Acciavatti, I'd like to withdraw my motion and proceed with the consent agenda as is.
We would need a motion in support to approve item 6B, which is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Vosberg. Discussion. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a point of clarification. The notice of vacancy that Attorney Siebert mentioned was in fact what was prepared by Human
Mr. Supervisor,
Resource.
that's not germane to this motion.
Was prepared by Human Resource.
Just on the agenda now, I'm sorry. Just be careful. We're almost done.
Just a point of clarification.
She's
then,
talking about a
Mr.
previous motion
Supervisor.
at this point, Mr. Supervisor.
on
This
the
is a
agenda?
motion.
It was on Supervisor's response to Trustee Joseph's agenda.
That motion has been withdrawn. There's no debate.
Can we discuss this on item 6B, or 7B
Certainly.
that's on there?
It's just a
We have
point of clarification.
Motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 6B as submitted, which is the agenda. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Deming.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 7 is the regular agenda, 7A.
Item 7A is to approve a request by the assessor to adopt Resolution 2021-15, number 1, and Resolution 2021-16, number 2, and set the date for a public hearing for June 22nd, 2021, regular Township Board meeting at 7 p.m. for the purpose of hearing any objections to the petition, the maintenance of said proposed improvements, and the creation of a special assessment district, therefore, in the proposed establishment of a special assessment district, SAD, for gravel road maintenance on Killawald.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as stated and adopt Resolution 2021-15,
Motion by Clerk Barry.
2021-16, and set a public hearing for June 22nd, 2021.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Trustee Vosberg. Discussion. Carrie. Oh, I'm sorry. You support, who supported that? Treasurer Elliott. Discussion or questions from the board? And Assessor Carrie Bouvier is here.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments from the public? Motion by Clerk Barry, support by Treasurer Elliott to approve item 7A as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7B.
Item 7B is to consider individuals for appointment as Chesterfield Township Supervisor effective July 6, 2021 at 12:01 p.m.
And if any individual wishes to address the board, please do so at this time. This is not an action item. It's not there's no action item. I guess we could open discussion. Oh, no.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Wharton, 50393 Bauer. I was a little confused by this whole process, as I see you guys have had issues discussing it as well on here in regards to the supervisor position. And my original intention in submitting for that position was in hopes of creating an independent, nonpartisan individual to carry out until the interim time period is over. I know that there's going to be a special election next year, and that was my whole intention in running for this with your considerations, simply on the basis of I know it would be very contended, and I know there will be a lot of factional divisions in regards to it, and the overall hope was for a 16-month period, carry out the position without any intention of running in the special election. I feel that that has been a very, I can't say toxic, but more or less a divisive situation in township politics going back over several elections. I've looked into the past elections, and it does seem like there's oftentimes a strong situation with whoever the incumbent is versus a challenger. And so that was my overall hope in this 16-month position. I know that there is a different process playing out now, and I will fully support however that decision turns out, whether it be tonight or over the next few weeks, as long as there is a process that plays out that guarantees us a supervisor for the foreseeable future. And with that being said, though, I had made my considerations for this position under the basis of hopefully providing a balanced candidate, which would be, I know I am very young to be proceeding with such a position, but I do offer up different experiences, and of those across the board in military, fire, now medical, and many other fields that are very notable for public service. I've been a public servant for basically my entire adult life, and it runs in my family, from being the son of a respiratory therapist and police sergeant, both of whom were EMTs, to being the grandson of two military veterans, and the great-grandson of a mayor and police chief. Overall, I chose to try and do this simply on the basis of wanting to continue that public service, whether it be when I stood up here almost 3 years ago and asked if there was anything I could do to help the fire department, and I made sure to keep that promise. Providing the service toward the people is something I feel is a lost art in our society, whether it be people from my generation who I feel some do make that full commitment toward public and civil service, and a sort of a more or less lost art, mostly seen in those who were part of the greatest generation. Just a few days ago, we had the anniversary of D-Day, and we saw how powerful the individuals who ran on those beaches made for those who could not live through that day, but the ones who did, they brought home a new sense of justice and understanding of civics for the future. I understand this process is a little changed, and as I said, I will fully support and commit to helping out the individual who is selected for the position, but just to be considered for it would definitely bring a sort of different vision and different understanding than what is usually foreseen in public office. And thank you very much, and if I could just get sort of recognition for that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wharton. Any further individuals wish to speak on item 7B, which is to consider appointment as Chesterfield Township Supervisor? We did receive 5 letters that I know of, and I believe the board has all those letters of interest.
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. I have a question. This is supposed to be a process, but in a process, there's usually qualifications that people get weeded out of a process when you're selecting somebody. So I know legally all you have to do is be 18, a resident, and a registered voter. That doesn't leave a warm, fuzzy feeling in my stomach who the next supervisor is going to be. How do we narrow down the clerk's process so that people understand that we want somebody that can lead, manage, understands relationships, has previous township experience in government? This item here is like a free-for-all. Anybody can just throw their hat in there, and then I don't know how it's going to get sorted out. So I think we're going to waste a lot of time unless you are more definitive in what this really is. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, did you submit a letter of interest to anybody for the position? Did you? Oh, okay. Thank you. Any further individuals wish to speak on item 7B? Any comments from the Clerk Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is the proper moment to just make a clarification. The notice of vacancy was not prepared by the clerk's office. It was given to the clerk's office by the Human Resource Department for our review. We noticed some discrepancies and issues, and we forwarded it on to the attorney for those changes. So that is how that came about. I just wanted to clarify that. We did ultimately go and use that as notification to the public once it was reviewed and approved by the attorney with the applicable changes. As far as providing a method, another reason that came about, and just to share with the board and everyone how that happened, When news of the vacancy became known, or the intended vacancy, we received many, many calls from people asking us how it was going to be handled and what they should do. We also found a bit of confusion. It would appear that different elected officials were giving various people different suggestions on what to do and how to contact and how to submit their interest. So due to the confusion that we were getting, the calls that we were getting into our office, as well as we realized that there was a notice being prepared by Human Resources, we then went and prepared a process. That process included notification of the public, also through printed circulation, newspapers of general circulation, social media, and so on. So there was notification provided to the public, and then we provided a form for the public to fill out. So it wasn't the only way that someone could submit, but it was a way for people to submit their interest. So we were doing our due diligence and our satisfying our required statutory responsibilities in the clerk's office. So that is how the process came about. That's why it came about. And at the end of the day, we are satisfied that we adequately notified the public and that we did provide a method for all eligible residents to submit their letters of interest or their application for this position. And now we find ourselves in the board members all had the ability to review them, and now that we can consider individuals for appointment as Chesterfield Township Supervisor, I would actually like to make a motion, Mr. Supervisor, to appoint Brad Kirsten as Chesterfield Township Supervisor effective July 6, 2021 at 12:01 p.m.
We actually have that exact item on the next, on item C. Is there support for that before I guess move forward?
We can do it at either time.
Well,
Support.
it's support by Treasurer Elliott, so we can discussion.
We moved from consideration to agenda item C, is what we've done now? Is that where we're at?
I guess we're still on B, but now we have a motion on B to, which is basically the exact motion that's in C.
Okay, so if I may speak to the motion and the second.
And Attorney Siebert, I think I might need your help with this one. So at some point here, I'm the only one, I am not voting on this motion. Can I still navigate the discussion?
You can navigate the discussion, you can even participate in the discussion, but of course, as you indicated, you may not vote.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph.
Bit confusing, but however we get to the final destination, I'm all on board. As I indicated at the last board meeting, I prepared and planned to bring forward a motion to appoint Public Safety Director Kirsten to the role of Township Supervisor. And just to address a couple of the considerations that were raised from the podium before we go, there was no process, and that was the difficulty. So Treasurer LaFata's issue involving what would be the standards and so forth, that is a board function. So the concern for me is in the first agenda item was we lack that, but what we do have the ability to do is what I brought forward in the agenda item C, which is just to make a request that we approve an appointment. So with that being said, dear honorable board members, this evening's agenda item regarding the board's possible appointment of Public Safety Director Brad Kirsten represents the most significant decision this board has faced. Although you've been provided the resume and letter of interest from Director Kirsten, there are several additional factors that I believe are worthy of your consideration prior to our vote. My report to you tonight is the result of hours of research, interviews, and consultation with a number of individuals and groups. I must express a sincere thank you to our attorney, Robert Siebert, my fellow board members, township staff, and department heads, our public safety administrative team, elected officials from neighboring communities, local business owners and developers, Chamber of Commerce representatives, and most importantly, the countless township residents that I've encountered in this process. I'm very appreciative and most grateful for your willingness to share your perspectives, opinions, and concerns involving this especially important decision. At our 5/25/21 board meeting, we accepted Mr. Acciavatti's resignation, and we were comprehensively advised by our long-term township attorney, Robert Siebert, of all the applicable Michigan compiled laws pertaining to this situation. I feel no need to restate Mr. Siebert's instructions, as I trust each board member is familiar with the governing law. However, I would like to point out that this agenda item, Director Kirsten's fitness to hold office and this board's ability to appoint him is perfectly permissible and on strong legal ground, highlighting what makes for a strong candidate. And as was reported earlier, there are no official minimum skills, qualities, experience, and education, but I did spend considerable time with the above referenced stakeholders and compiled a complete registry of what I call must-have qualifications. From the resident perspective, I was advised that honesty, integrity, commitment to Chesterfield, hardworking, tested leader, diplomacy are all must-haves. From township staff and department heads, I was told they hope an interim township supervisor will have, quote, specific understanding of how and what we do. Neighboring elected officials, business owners, and developers shared a common interest and hope that the new supervisor will possess a deep knowledge of, quote, township ordinances and procedures and is capable of communicating them effectively. However, the single greatest list came from consultation with our Township Human Resources Director, Mr. Steve Duchesne. As you are all well aware, Mr. Duchesne has immense HR experience and has held executive office in several Macomb County communities, some much larger than ours. Mr. Duchesne is regarded as an expert in the field and an accomplished author of several books regarding executive leadership. The outline of Mr. Duchesne's list included 7 distinct areas of required performance, with each standard containing several specific qualifications. In total, 35 separate areas of objective performance measures were listed. In the comparison between the list of must-haves, which included stakeholders, and Mr. Duchesne's list, as you can clearly see, that list is quite extensive, and the expectations and qualifications created from the combination of those stakeholders were an excellent benchmark to evaluate Director Kirsten's ability to serve as our interim supervisor. From his submitted resume and letter of interest, you can clearly see that Director Kirsten possesses all of these qualifications and more. Obviously, we are well aware that he has over 30 years of dedicated service to this township and currently supervises the largest department in the township. Additionally, he not only possesses both bachelor's and master's degrees, he graduated from Eastern Michigan University Staff and Command Academy, as well as over 3 dozen specialized training programs. He has completed advanced leadership training at the county, state, and federal level, and has graduated from the prestigious FBI Leadership Academy, LEADA. As confirmed by Director Duchesne, Director Kirsten has numerous positive letters of appreciation from the public, as well as Chesterfield Police Department accommodations. He is well known in the community and for decades has attended countless township-led events, charity efforts, ribbon cuttings, grand openings. He has taken personal interest in needy Chesterfield families and spearheaded fundraising efforts for muscular dystrophy, Care House, McRest, and others. He has the respect of his peers, having served as the president of the Macomb County Chiefs of Police Association and was appointed by Governor Snyder to serve on a state police advisory board. Also, Director Kirsten has strong working relationships with leaders at all levels of local and county government, as well as FEMA and Selfridge Air National Guard Base. Based solely on experience, education, and leadership skills, I believe Director Kirsten's qualifications are phenomenal and unmatched. However, equally as impressive is the high regard, confidence, and esteem he has with all levels of township stakeholders, including the township staff and department heads. The communication I've had and the letters of support received by this board from so many different sources is unbelievable. Literally, a representative from every conceivable stakeholder has weighed in and urged us to appoint Director Kirsten to interim supervisor. The only concerns about the appointment of Director Kirsten to the interim supervisor comes in the way of repeated concerns, and they expressed some apprehension in the possible void which could be created in the Public Safety Department. As this board's liaisons with the Public Safety Department, Trustee Anderson and I meet at least once per month with Director Kirsten and his administrative team. When it appeared that Director Kirsten was considering appointment, we reached out to the 3 members of the team: Chesterfield Fire Department Captain Miller, Chesterfield Police Department Captains McNair and Franks. I'm sorry, Captain Miller, or Chief Miller. I called you Captain. I meant Chief. I apologize. All 3 have indicated that day-to-day operations will remain as they are, and they have absolutely no concerns about diminished service or safety to the residents. Chief Miller communicated his support for the appointment and expressed no concerns regarding fire operations. Regarding the police department, quote, "I can assure you that the cohesive executive management team will seamlessly continue to provide the residents of Chesterfield Township the services that they have come to expect and demand. The Public Safety Department will continue to strive to provide the highest level of service by the most efficient and effective means to make Chesterfield a place people will continue to live, work, and play for many years to come." Chesterfield Police Department Captain Brian McNair. Another quote, "The leadership at the Public Safety Department has always operated as one. We will continue to progress and provide the best possible public safety service to the residents and visitors of Chesterfield Township." That comes to us from Chesterfield Police Department Captain Franks. What are the consequences if we fail to act? As we were thoroughly advised by Attorney Siebert, we have a very specific and limited timeline with which to act. We can appoint someone with a simple majority. We can vote to form a detailed application process, or even form a committee to vet and recommend a candidate. We have 30 days prior to Mr. Acciavatti's resignation, followed by an additional 45 days after his 7/6/21 resignation. I asked the members to look back on the events of this past week and the carnival-like atmosphere created by one reckless board member, the antics coupled with the history of this board's level of lack of cooperation at times, and ask yourselves, will we be able to reach a majority decision to approve a committee or a process in time? Unwillingness or inability to act tonight could leave this township without an executive until November 2022. The thought of our township being adrift for 18 months would be a shameful embarrassment that will stay in our township forever, and we should not let that happen. In closing, I'd like to share with you 2 final and unique reasons that I believe Brad Kirsten is the most appropriate candidate. First, appointment of Director Kirsten tonight will afford him the chance to shadow Supervisor Acciavatti before he departs for the Public Works Department next month. This hands-on opportunity is a fortuitous gift available to us, and we should not squander it. Lastly, Director Kirsten is the only qualified individual that has the respect and admiration of every member of this board. He has excellent working relationships with each of us. He has the diplomacy skills needed to heal this board and bring us together. In fact, within hours of our last board meeting, members who haven't had the kindest of things to say to one another began to come together to collaboratively face this challenge. Brad Kirsten is undeniably qualified and willing to accept this appointment. He is the candidate that we should coalesce around and commit to provide him all the support he needs to successfully lead this township that we all so love. I respectfully ask for your unanimous support in his appointment tonight. Thank you. Sincerely, Trustee Joseph.
Any further comments from the board? Trustee DeVinco.
I'm not going to go in as long as Trustee Joseph did.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody knows I'm short-winded. Director or Brad Kirsten, as I've known him, I think, unless Butch DeBlau's here, and he's not, I probably am the longest knowing Brad since he's been in this township when he was a rookie Chesterfield officer and I was a rookie deputy. I've known him the longest. He's done a great job. I've worked with him for the 17 years now that I've been on this board, from where he's come from patrolman up through the ranks. He's done a great job. And with his resume and the way he's worked with the PD and the way he's worked with this board, he is the best candidate. And knowing Brad the way I know you, Brad, I know you do one hell of a job. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Kind of rough following you, Mr. Joseph, but Chief Kirsten, I've known him probably since '94. He was an integral part helping us at times at the high school. Always grateful for that, and the other officers in Chesterfield. And I kind of premature congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
So tonight, the question was asked, what are the township supervisor's duties? And those can include moderating the board meetings, which are always fun, the township's legal agent, maintaining records, developing a township budget, and appointing commissions. And that's just a small portion of the duties that we look for when we're looking at a supervisor and the things that they will have. It's a very big job. And Director Kirsten, I've been in many meetings with him, and he's always professional. He's always empathetic, listens, and has excellent communication skills. When he does present something, it's always in a way that answers all of the questions that you were thinking in your mind that you didn't ask. For that, I appreciate, and I believe that he will be our next supervisor. But I did ask him and request him to read part of his letter. Would you be willing to do that? Thank you.
Could you,
Thank you very much, Trustee Joseph, for looking at my resume that deeply. I did pare it down because there was a lot of law enforcement information there. My experience and I'm going to read from my letter, I found that effective leadership is born out of cooperation, and that's how I've always led at the police department, and as we move to public safety at the board's direction into the fire department. You don't get anywhere fighting and arguing, and we never progressed. I wanted to convey the successes that we had, and I think you've seen them over the course of the last 4 years of how the public safety department has grown, expanded, and worked with the community and with this board to expose what we do and how we do it and why we do it. Part of that is working with department heads here in the township. I have a great relationship with all the department heads, and again, that was important outside of the police work and outside of the 911 dispatch center. It's great relationships with the building department, facilities, and working with them and orchestrating what our plan and objective is for this community. Again, this community, what we all love, what we all strive for, what we all want perfection, what we all want to serve the residents here with compassion, with dignity, with respect. That's been the message and mantra, not just from me, but from the entire public safety staff. Captain McNair, Captain Franks, Chief Miller. That's the mission that we set forward in conversations on a daily basis. So how can we fix, how can we repair, what can we do for this community, and how do we serve it in its best possible manner. I can read on. I'm very humbled. It's not about me. I appreciate what the board and the comments are. They're overwhelming. We all love this place and we all want to do the right thing. As Supervisor Acciavatti has said, it's not about us, it's about what we can do for this place, and that's what drives me to want this position. I think we've done a great job in public safety. I think I have more to offer. I have more abilities, and I think as a team, as we work together, I have a lot to learn. But I think that the foundation that has been built, I can progress on and as a group move forward. So I can continue on. It's not about me. It's an honor to stand here before you.
I really appreciate what you said, because when I wrote on my agenda notes tonight, I wrote the word humble next to your name. It's the truth. Steve Duchesne was there when I wrote it down, and I looked through it. And if you don't mind, there is one particular part of your letter that I'd like to read for these guys that I highlighted. And you wrote to us and you said, "I believe the mission of our township should be a commitment to service, pride, compassion, and responsible preparation for the future. The mission can be applied to all levels of government, and I would continue to commit to this same mission as Chesterfield Township Supervisor. And for that reason, that is why I support this motion.
Thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Brad and I have had hours and hours of conversation over the almost 10 years that we've been working together. And Director Kirsten has always had a recognition and a respect for the clerk's office and for the functions that we do. And he has always been respectful of our staff. He has always been considerate in understanding of our processes and what needed to be done. When we had a very large challenge when it came to records management with regards to law enforcement, he was very active and cooperative in assisting us in putting together a program that would work for law enforcement and satisfy the statutory requirements that the clerk's office needed to adhere to. So that's just one example, but there's been many, many over the years, different things that Brad and I have worked on. Women's self-defense, when we put that together, always very willing and considerate and understanding of what we were trying to accomplish, and was always interested in being part of the solution. And I always appreciated that. And just recently, when there was, it was made known that Director Kirsten had interest in this position, we spent 3 hours on a Friday when I know he was eager to go home and kind of get his weekend started, but he spent 3 hours having conversations about some of the issues and some of the challenges that I felt were important to discuss with me. And for those of you who aren't familiar with how a township works internally, but the clerk and the supervisor work very closely together. Supervisor Acciavatti and I have had a very good working relationship. Our staffs work very closely and very well together as well in order to keep things running smoothly. And I had every confidence at the end of that meeting that Director Kirsten, if made supervisor, would continue that. Again, just an enormous amount of respect for him because he has always shown courtesy, respect, and understanding of my position of the clerk's office. And so I look forward to a vote, and that's why I was honored, and it was my privilege to make the motion to appoint Brad Kirsten supervisor. Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you to the fellow board members for all the words that they've said. I didn't realize my thoughts were so transparent that they were all stated by everyone else, by all of them. I want to add just one more additional thing. As the president of the Historical Society, I've appreciated the fact that you also have an interest in the history, and you've provided historical artifacts from the police department, and your staff always supports the events we have. I too am looking forward to supporting you in this. Thank you.
Thank you. One maybe for me, because I kind of created or set the wheels in motion to create the events that have led us here today. There's significant life moments that happen, and depending on where you are in your life, you have a group and a team that you lean on and ask advice from. So when I was presented with a opportunity to help more people, to impact at a higher level, confusion, sadness, excitement, I was very humbled but also scared. I reached out to my small group. It started with my wife and family, and right there on the list was Director Kirsten. In the last 5 years, I don't think I've had somebody more on the inner circle of running in this township at every single level from the day I walked in the door. And that was 3 days before I actually took office. I'll never forget all the moments and all of the things. So as I'm debating in my mind this opportunity, a dream of mine to help more people, environmental protection, infrastructure as the tool. Director Kirsten was one of my first call before I even got past 50% of moving on. And my conversation with him was very emotional to begin with, but he calmed me right away in that that's when he shared that he's interested. We've had discussions of this over the last 4 years, and that actually is what put me at ease and at peace with being able to chase my dreams, is Director Kirsten's willingness to throw his name in the ring. Integrity, love of community, honor. That's been my experience with him on a very close level on very difficult issues. This position requires not only expertise in public safety, also community development, water and sewers, sidewalk, road coordination at multiple levels of government with stakeholders, internal and external. And he's been a confidant with me in this board for 4.5 years that I've been here. I see Supervisor Ellis here, former Supervisor Ellis in the audience. So I fully support. I just wish I could actually cast the vote when we move on here. So that's my thoughts on it. And without somebody like Brad stepping up, we probably wouldn't even be here having this discussion. Any further comments from the board or comments from the public on? We are on item 7B, and we have a motion by Clerk Berry, support by Treasurer Elliott, to appoint Chesterfield Township Public Safety Director Brad Kirsten to the position of Township Supervisor effective 7/6/2021 at 12:01 p.m. Public comment.
Michelle Wilson Merriweather, 52860 Muirfield Drive. I just wanted to state that I came this evening, to be honest, prepared for a war of words over how this selection process was going to go. But I will honestly say that, number one, I am pleased. The clerk's office, however it went about, I thank you for reaching out to give everyone equally an opportunity from all backgrounds, all genders, all creeds and colors to run or to be appointed, to look to be appointed if they wanted to. And then I would like to state to the board in regard to your decisions regarding Brad Kirsten, I am fully in agreement. I would say that last year, and it was a year of unrest for many reasons, and I will have to say, he and I forged a relationship. I went to him on many issues that were taking place that were undercurrents within the township, and I'll be honest, especially related to racial injustices. There were marches going on all across the country at that time. We reached out, formed a relationship, and had some very honest discussions. And I was pleased to say that as a member of the new North Macomb NAACP, I was honestly able to say that I had a very close relationship, and I can text and call anytime the head of the police force in my township. So I would say without a doubt, although I will state he is not a black female, but I will let that go. But I will say fully 100%, if you were given a vote, this man's got my backing. And he's got the full backing of the community I know. He's got a full backing of the African-American community, of which I meet with regularly in Chesterfield Township. He understands, he builds diversity, he understands women's issues. So without a doubt, give the man your vote. He deserves it.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Mike Wharton again. And we're the tall guys in the room. So the director has been one of the biggest helps throughout guiding me in getting into the fire department, and he's been a big asset in sort of navigating. I think undoubtedly he has had probably the toughest job between March and June of last year. So much so in just a few month period, I'm sure you've aged probably a decade. We've come through probably the hardest series of crises as a community, as a country in a long time. And you had steady leadership going through it. And so now that you have a political, I wouldn't say crisis, but definitely a sort of turntable going on right now, you have a good choice in someone going for that position. And so my dad has known the director since before I was born, I think, right? Something like that. He is a very good man and a good leader, highly intelligent, very tall. And whether it be through the interim time period or through the election next year or and beyond, I think that you have a good choice. And as long as there's a good transition period, I think that July 6th will come and just be business as usual, and you'll have a good person carrying out the township's prerogative for the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Good evening, John Speaker. I am in full agreement with making Director Brad Kirsten the new supervisor of Chesterfield Township. One of the things that Ms. Elliott didn't mention that I'm going to mention, as a supervisor, he's going to be in charge of day-to-day operations, which is a huge function in this township. He's going to be in charge of enforcing policies, and on what Director Kirsten's coming into is he's got a lot to deal with when he comes in. So I think he's a great choice for this township. I think he's going to do a great job. And one of the things that I think that Director Kirsten's going to be able to do is I think he's going to be able to bring this board together in a way that hasn't happened in this township. So, and I mean, he's already started. You know, I heard Clerk Berry say that she had a 3-hour conversation with Director Kirsten. God, if Director Kirsten can get her in the building for 3 hours, we're already making progress. So I ask each and every one of the board members to give your full support for Director Kirsten and make him the next supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? We have a motion by Clerk Berry, support by Treasurer Elliott, to appoint Chesterfield Township Public Safety Director Brad Kirsten to the Chesterfield Township Supervisor position effective July 6, 2021 at 12:01 p.m. Clerk Berry, please call the roll minus my name.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Yep, yes.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
You're not leaving yet.
Speech.
Again, Trustee Joseph reading my resume and letter, thank you. Humbling, to say the least. Trustee Anderson, yep, you remember when I was just a patrol officer here. I think you were on the oral board. You were on the oral board for my promotion. Trustee Demink, we all had hair back then. Supervisor Acciavatti, yes, thank you for the conversation. I wasn't real serious at first when we discussed this. I thought it was a political future. When you left or when you chose to leave through a normal process is what I was looking for, but man, the trust that you gave me, the conversation we've had, thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope you're around for direction and your expertise still. It's my mentor, Mr. Ellis. Great man. His wife Peggy, great person. Unfortunately, she passed. I eat breakfast with him every Sunday, and the guy could still be here. He's as sharp as a tack. He tells me, he advised me, he gives me advice, and he's just a worldly person, and I respect that immensely. Miss Merriweather, your words, we haven't known each other long, but you're spot on. You have my phone number, we communicate, we talk, I'm still here. Give me a call anytime. Man, I want you to be my PR person. To walk in here cold and present the supervisor with that, you're going a long way. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve the residents of Chesterfield. I've always done that, as we all have done. Compassion, leadership, clear direction. That's the key to leadership. That's the key to making a positive work environment and a positive impact on our community. That's what I'm going to strive to do. Got big shoes to fill. You are my experts. You are the ones that I will be leaning on for direction, thought, and experience. I come from a different world, outside of politics. Yes, we operate in it, but I'm a cop, and I'll have to smooth some of the rough edges around to at least reach what your expectations are. You set the bar way up high for me, and I hope I can perform for you, and that's really going to be the goal and the mission for me, is to perform for you guys to make sure that I don't disappoint. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think I was told, Chief Bassett, what was the book for dummies? Robert's Rules. I better start reading it for dummies. So.
We run an amended.
Thank you very much.
We run an amended version here, so. Thank you. Item 7C. Can I have a motion to remove item 7C from the agenda?
Motion to remove item 7C from the agenda.
Motion by Clerk Barry. Support by Trustee Joseph to remove item 7C. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. It is removed. Item 7D.
Item 7D is to approve a request to enter into a new 4-year agreement between the Charter Township of Chesterfield and Siebert Delaski PLLC, commencing July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Demink. Discussion. Comments from the public. Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Demink to approve item 7D as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 7E.
Item 7E is a recommendation from the CDBG Committee to award the senior park contract to WCI Contractors in the amount of $158,646.90, with a total project amount of $213,007.25.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg.
Second.
Support by Clerk Barry. Discussion. And Director Sonnenberg is here.
Yes, good evening. This item was brought up about last February, and it's in regards to when we started this process to go for a grant for our senior park through the CBDG fund. We went through that process. We actually got awarded the grant, and then we went through the bidding, the actual planning and bidding phases. And you'll note that originally when this started, because of construction costs going through the roof, that we would have to come back and really make some big adjustments and change our request. But luckily enough, we've made some minor changes, almost unnoticeable, the amount of fence posts and a few things that we adjusted that actually make it work better. So we stayed consistent with the goals of our project, and this is to create, we brought this, Leisure Services brought this in front of the senior citizens, and they were all on board. It just gives them an outdoor space. We've talked about this before, showing the drawings. This is the first phase of 2 phases. This will get us out of the ground with all the concrete and foundation work, fence work, and some turf. And then phase 2 will be an actual wood pavilion that'll come on top of the foundations that will go in.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge not only Josh, but Jody Claycomb in our administration in office and Spalding D. Decker on this project. This was a competitive grant for the CBDG funding through the county. They had the vision, and the entire package from beginning to end has been smooth and great so far, and it's going to be a really good ad. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Motion by Trustee Vosberg, support by Clerk Barry to approve item 7E as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg, or excuse me, Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 7F.
Item 7F is a recommendation by Supervisor Acciavatti to execute the contract between Chesterfield Township and the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Land Acquisition Project Agreement and adopt Resolution Number 2021-17, Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Land Acquisition Project Agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Acciavatti, support by Clerk Barry. Discussion. Questions from or comments from the public? Motion by Supervisor Acciavatti, support by Clerk Barry to approve item 7F as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 7G.
Item 7G is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to complete a water distribution system reliability study by utilizing the engineering services of Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick, AEW, at a total cost of $28,805 from GL number 591-542-801-000.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg.
Support.
Support by Treasurer Elliott. Director Johnson.
Yes, good evening, Board. So per the Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act, Rule 1203, subsection 2, all Type 1 public services are required to complete a reliability study. We are a Type 1 public water supplier, which means it's a public water supply that serves 25 or more residents or 15 or more living units year-round, which is probably 95% of the communities in our state. So the last time we did this was 2015, so we're a little overdue. But we had AEW complete this study in 2015. They did a fantastic job, very thorough and very efficient. This study takes a hydraulic study. It takes a look at our public use demands, making sure we got enough water for all areas of the township for our residents, enough water for fire demands for any area of our township. And the hydraulic analysis will make sure that we have proper pressure throughout our township, making sure that if we have deficiencies, it'll give us recommendations on how we can improve our system throughout the township. The model will help us update our master plan because we have multiple connections to Great Lakes Water Authority. We have the ability to potentially reduce water main sizes that we have currently on our master plan, or maybe find some additional spots where we can create redundancy. And also, again, like I said, improve pressure issues if necessary. AEW did do our recent study. They've had our information going back 35 years, so it makes it an efficient process because they have that data. They can just take this, kind of plug it in, and kind of move forward at a faster pace. And it's not just because it's faster we're going with them, but they've done a great job with the study, providing reliable data to make this move forward. And then along with this study, there's a hydrant flow test, so our Public Works Department will be flowing 150 hydrants randomly through the township to do pressure tests and then take that data into this study to help give more accurate information of what our current system is, how it's flowing, and then how we can look to improve it. And I'll be happy to take any questions or maybe.
Any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Motion by trustee Vosberg, support by treasurer Elliott to approve item 7G as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Thank
Thank
you. Item 7H.
Item 7H is to approve a recommendation from engineering to award the Civic Center Bridge Construction 1027-2020 and Civic Center Pavement Rehabilitation 1028-2020 to the lowest responsible bidder, Blaze Contracting, Inc., in the amount of $845,263, with the total project cost in the amount of $1,024,893.40 from General Ledger Number 101-265-975-000. Accompanying this item is a request to approve a budget amendment, GL Number 101-265-975-000, increasing the budget from $873,697 to $1,110,894.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Demink,
Second.
support by clerk Berry. And we do have Jeremy with Spalding D. Decker here if the board has any questions. Questions from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. When this bridge issue first came up and there was deflection in the bridge, I asked the question, what was the failure that caused the deflection? Never got an answer because, and I don't know why, but usually when there's a failure, you try to find out what caused the failure. The wood rot, it wasn't maintained, the pilings weren't sufficient, but never got an answer why it failed. Then I did a little research, and there's a company in Highland, Michigan, right down M59, that makes cement bridges. They make all types of them. They can put a bridge as large as 40 foot on a lowboy trailer and set it in place with a crane. And that cost was about $300,000 more at that time than the wooden bridge was. And it had an 80-year life expectancy, and it didn't take the annual maintenance that a wooden bridge would take. And what I heard were reasons why we couldn't use a cement bridge. Never heard how we could make a cement bridge work. If you take 80 years against a 40-year bridge, which the last bridge didn't last 40 years, it only lasted about 27 before it failed, and you use it like a depreciation schedule, that bridge, if you put one in for 80 years and it's cement and it lasts 80 years, you're going to get a savings over those 80 years, if you do the math, probably around $700,000 or $800,000 because of inflation. For materials, you won't have to pay the maintenance costs you would on a wooden bridge, and you won't have the engineering cost again in another 30-some years when this bridge fails again, because we're only replacing the deck. So I'm just wondering why we're going to put a wooden deck on a bridge that's already failed previous to the 40-year life expectancy, and we're going to utilize the foundation for this bridge. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Conroe Drive. The statement that Mr. LaFata made he was spot on. Again, it's very easy to sit on this board and, you know, be the head of the board and the supervisor of the township and not do your research. And this is a prime example of spending and wasting money, taxpayers' money. If we can have a concrete bridge that'll last 80 years versus a wood bridge that only lasted 27 years, minus the maintenance and upkeep that we have to do to the concrete bridge versus what we have to do to the wooden bridge, it's a no-brainer. I mean, this is just one of many examples on how many of these board members waste township money, starting with the supervisor. And before you spend this type of money, we need to do our research, and that hasn't been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? I'd like to call Director Duchesne. Give you a little background on this project specifically. The former board, Ways and Means Committee, we're 4 years into this in the research and the development. At least 2 years of analyzing the bridge, Pazer study, which was controversial, analyzing the parking lot, chasing down every grant opportunity. And most of the very large expenditures we have had, Shoreline, $1.5 million in grants, Weber Paddle Park, $500,000, Jefferson Road Bridge, have been funded primarily through grants. And we continue to utilize and chase those as much as possible, and there'll be a whole lot more opportunities moving forward. We won't have a gap again, and we shouldn't for the next decade of not having grants. Hence this major investment of a 30-plus-year-old parking lot in a bridge that was clearly failing. We're actually on a moat here, so there's drains on every side of us. There's no way to get off of this parcel except for that bridge. So those discussions throughout those years, and they were years, included another entrance, included concrete bridges, rehabbing that bridge, a neighboring bridge beside it, and that Ways and Means Committee, with especially myself and the former treasurer, researched each and every one of those. Starting that, I'm a concrete guy. I believe in concrete right from the word go. Concrete's where I started. And Director Duchesne, if you wouldn't mind, the several Ways and Means Committee explaining, you know, from your perspective, how we as a team ended up at this solution, I would appreciate it.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Supervisor. Yes, as you said, we have a Ways and Means Committee that met multiple times with certainly the participation and involvement of people. We had engineering representation, alternatives looked at. And I think at least I recall, without minutes or notes here, at least 3 times we discussed various options. As former Treasurer LaFata indicated, he brought forward some thoughts about alternatives in design. It was reviewed about the most cost-effective method into restoring and maintaining the bridge. There was a discussion, as I recall, about the inability to have a secondary bridge put in while repairing the other bridge. We looked at reconfiguration of the roadway and system also, and how that would interact with the parking lot. So there's quite extensive review, as you summarized better than I right now, the engineering aspects of both repair and replace and how that could be done effectively and efficiently versus the replacement and the larger cost, and the cost values seem to be the answer that's before the board tonight. Again, without specifics.
How many times would you say that myself, former treasurer, yourself, engineering companies, our current in-house engineer met and discussed this, not only in that little group, but not only that, but sending out our engineer to analyze the existing substructure. Would it hold a new bridge on top? The estimates of a new concrete bridge might have been an estimate of 1.2 million. It might be 2 million. It might have been 2.5 million. Every one of those was analyzed. How many times do you think we actually met, and how long of a time did that take?
I think you're probably right about the 2 years, off the top of my head, at least in there. And I think there were at least what we would consider 3 or 4 scheduled more formal discussions, and maybe I would suggest 4 or 5 or more various part discussions about specific subjects within that concept, about everything from alternative roads to how a design could be brought in and done. Yeah.
Thank you. I am extremely comfortable, I know he loves that word, of the amount of only one time to speak, sir, sorry. I'm well aware. No, he cannot. Please. No, he cannot. No, he cannot. No, he cannot. I am very satisfied, and I expect this same type of detailed analysis to be done on every single project that this township puts forward moving forward. Any comments from the board?
Yes,
Trustee
Mr.
Joseph.
Supervisor. I'm not sure the policy tonight. We let people speak, and we don't let people speak. Specifically, Mr. Wharton spoke twice on agenda item B. This is back and forth. Your mentioning of the grants. I really don't want to fight, and you know, the digs that you're taking with speakers and then debating yourself with people that report to you. It's almost over. I'm gonna just keep quiet tonight, but can we just vote on this and get your approval, and then we can move on?
Yep,
and
is
just
that a call to
mark another
question?
day? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'd
Call
like
the
to
question by
the
Trustee Joseph. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry, please call the roll on item 7H. The motion was by
No, to
Trustee
call
Demink.
question.
Please call the roll on the call of question.
To call the question. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye, motion passes. Please call the roll on item 7H.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 9, public comment. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. First of all, I'd like to...
Please address the board.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Kirsten on his Supervisor Pro Tem position. He's not in here right now, so I guess he won't hear me, but in reality, will come sooner than he thinks. Brad knows what it's like to work in a department that's not funded, that's got dwindling funds. Reality is going to kick in sooner than he thinks because he's going to have his work cut out. The township has budgets that fund balances that are shrinking, and it's going to take somebody to look at them and to not be naive and do something. Public Safety Department works on metrics. They measure response times, building fires, moving violations, how many officers are on the beat every day, how many hours the vehicles are on the road. Metrics are a good thing to manage by, and maybe when Mr. Kirsten takes over, maybe he'll introduce some metrics to the business operations of the township, because when you have metrics, you can have continuous improvement, because you know where you're at, you know where you want to go, and you've got something to measure yourself by. When you don't have anything to measure yourself by, you're just going to run around in a circle because you don't know whether you're getting better or you don't know you're getting worse. And the only thing that you got to gauge on right now is you look at your budgets and your fund balances are shrinking. So that's not really where you want to be. The other thing I want to make very clear, that at these executive review meetings where the decision was made for a cement bridge, Michelle Brandenburg takes excellent minutes for those meetings. Not one of them did it say that at that meeting, we selected a cement bridge. Not one of those meetings. I have a copy of every meeting minutes from Michelle, and not one was a decision in that meeting to make that bridge wood. The other thing is, the members of this board approved a resolution to bring F-35s to Selfridge Air Force Base. Well, you missed on the first time they went to Madison, Wisconsin, and you missed just recently they're going to Arkansas. So I think the residents are safe from the ear-shattering noise for a little while. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Good evening, Township Board and Chesterfield Township's residents. My name is John Spica. I reside at 53978 Connor Drive. Mr. Supervisor, I hear you mention your famous line of best practices in a lot of your comments you make. It sounds great, but in reality, it's a catchphrase you love to toss around. Isn't it best practice to listen to other experienced individuals, gather information and input, and then come up with the best possible solutions that makes dollars and cents for all the residents of Chesterfield Township? Is it best practice to grow the township employee payroll with friends and friends of friends and put the burden on the taxpayers of the township? For example, we have a full-time engineer, Mitch, on staff, but yet we send a majority of our work out to AEW. We have a full-time fleet repair individual named Jeremy who's getting paid to make decisions instead of repairing our fleet vehicles. How is that best practice? We spend thousands of dollars subcontracting the repairs out to repair places instead of applying best practices. How about the majority of our landscape work, grass cutting, another example of best practices? You subcontract the lawn work out so you can send the township employees over to work at Brandenburg Park. How does that make sense? The work hours alone, I know, are astronomical. What about the janitorial services for the Township Municipal Building and DPW building in the last bill run? That totals nearly $9,000 a month. How is this best practices for the township? What about your famous trash card program where the township loses over $69,000 a year? Is that best practice? I gave you a couple solutions to the trash card program, and you've done nothing to remedy the loss that we take per cart. What about the grant money from Weber Park? Where do we stand on that? According to the guidelines for the grant money, it says that a restroom building is needed to be included. I didn't see a restroom building there. I didn't see any amendment to the original grant either. So does this mean the township is out all of the $265,000 you promised the township and board that we were going to get? I have asked more than 7 times about this grant money from Weber Park, and you, Mr. Supervisor, refused to answer my question about the $265,000. Where's the transparency and what happened to the money? It's a simple question, and are we getting the money? And if not, why are we not getting what you promised? I don't even see the grant money on the 21 budget. Is that a clue to forget about the $265,000? Myself and many residents of Chesterfield are still waiting on an answer from you on the grant money. What, Miss Elliott, every time I ask a question at the podium, you try to twist the question as an attack on you. And you purposely do this because you're looking for sympathy from the residents. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I know the game you're playing, Ms. Elliott. Quit lying and answer the questions asked. At the last board meeting, I asked you about a $60 reimbursement on the bill run to a function that you went to. I didn't ask you who you brought, just why did you reimburse yourself $60 of tax money to a luncheon that you went to when you make close to $100,000 a year in Chesterfield? A simple question that you couldn't answer. I did make some calls around other townships and cities, and it is not customary to reimburse yourself for luncheons and events under $150. I wanted to share this info with you for future reference. Good night, and thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Bring up, go ahead.
Gary Gendernellik, 52624 Laurel Oak Lane. I'm here on a lighter note. That's why I left my tie at home. First of all, congratulations to Brad. You guys gave a lot of good reasons. I have another good reason. I'm from a family of 11. I think he's from either 16 or 18. I think our parents taught us how to persevere and get along and proceed accordingly. I'm glad to see that you passed the deal for the park at the end of the old Fuller Farm. Our Rotary Club was out there on May 15th, and we picked up a lot of junk. I gave the people in attendance a little oral history of the farm, because I knew Mr. Fuller and how he had given it out to St. Joe's Hospital when he passed away. One thing, probably you've all seen this. A few weeks ago, there was an article, May 12th, 2021, about...
If you could stay up at the podium, Karen will go up and grab them for me.
Okay, great. And then there's two items. Oh, but wait, I got to keep it.
Get your act together, counselor.
Yeah, I'm trying. But anyways, I had the good fortune of living at 35600 Main Street for 26 years. My parents, we had like an acre and a half of property. We had our own baseball field and football field. We lived one house off the canal. People let us keep our boat there. We lived 2 houses off the lake. Next to us to the west was a vacant field. We played ball in our yard. The vacant field was where war games took place. It was sandy soil. We dug bunkers. Periodically, the parents would come out and say, it's a little bit too deep, boys and girls. You got to fill it in. We're afraid of cave-ins. But that field was loaded with milkweed. And this article said that milkweed was poisonous, etc. Well, the milkweeds were our grenades. And everybody threw milkweeds and threw the plants around, and everybody got the milkweed juice on them somehow or another. In our 11, we all went to college. We have 3 doctorates. 6 people have at least 1 or 2 masters. The others 2 just went to college and got a regular degree. People in the neighborhood survived. The Reichlings, they've had their cottage for 105 years behind where we used to live. They played in the field. Everybody cut through the field as shortcuts to the lake. And then the second article I gave you, my one sister is associated with the Smithsonian Institute, and she sends me the magazine because she gets free legal advice. And that had a good article with reference to monarch butterflies. And on page 447, it gives the highlight there that the milkweed monarchs lay eggs on the flowering plant and feed on its nectar, which also furnishes toxins that make the insect unpalatable to predators. So it appears that the milkweed is okay for humans, or we all survived in the neighborhood. And at Memorial Day, I saw Martha Burr. She's a nurse. She lived diagonally from us. She cut through the field, and everybody played with the milkweed. We all took them apart and threw them. So I just wanted to give you this additional light information so that you have that. And when we cleaned up in the park, I didn't notice any milkweed there, but I did go back to the old field last night on the way to Clay Township Board meeting, and the field's now kind of a storage area for junk cars, and it's kind of overrun by trees. There's a few phragmites on the perimeter, but no milkweed and no monarchs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Let's bring it up to the board. Oh.
Yes, Mike Wharton again. Just wanted to briefly state that I am very happy in the situation coming out tonight. I just wish the public was a little more notified in the sense that, well, this is definitely a bigger crowd than usual. You think that the incredible event that happened tonight, there still isn't that much of a representation in the township itself. And I would hope that over the coming weeks, as we make the transition, that more people are able to get more of their civic engagement in the public forum and understand. I'm afraid that in the coming days and weeks, there's going to be someone waking up one morning and reading either the Macomb Daily or The Voice and be like, why is the chief of police the supervisor? I hope that doesn't happen, but I would imagine that there's, unless you're here or watching on the events, probably a lot of people don't know this even happened. And I think a good notification out from the township itself as soon as possible about the change in leadership should come about through the website and through all forms of social media. And a public congratulations to Director, now Supervisor-elect, or I don't know how that goes, Kirsten. And I just want to make sure that the township the township residents know the exact events and are well informed. And hopefully we can have more participation amongst the public here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Again, congratulations to Director Kirsten, soon to be Supervisor Kirsten. I did leave out in the letter one interesting area, and that is Mr. Ellis. I believe that Director Kirsten has maintained a relationship with him, and it is a testament to his ability to work. I don't know if you could discern what brand of politics Director Kirsten practices, because he gets along with Republicans, Democrats, Ms. Merriweather pointed out, all genders, races, religions, you name it. He's a people person, and he looks for solutions. And I could go on for considerable time praising him, but I do admire his interpersonal relationships and the people that he chooses to keep company with. Mr. Ellis is somebody that I have great respect for. I would have worn a tie if I knew you were here, Mr. Ellis, but I didn't know they were bringing the big dog out, so I can't say enough about him and you and the individuals that he's served alongside with admirably over the years. It's a great night. There are some specific reasons that I'm very happy for Director Kirsten to be here. I know that as I start to go down them, there will be, animosity and perceived attacks upon the current, and that's not the intent. But I do believe that we will come together. I know it in my heart. I think within hours of the notice of Supervisor Acciavatti's resignation, I received a call from Trustee Demink, and we couldn't have been more in line with one another in terms of what we had hoped to see. Trustee Anderson is somebody that I always find myself in substantial agreement with, so it was nice. And then the other interesting thing that happened is this last campaign really tore a lot of friendships apart, and I've enjoyed a friendship with the Elliott family for a long time. And the wounds that were administered during the election process, I hope are repairable, but I do appreciate immediately after that board meeting a conversation that she and I had, and then subsequent conversations over the past 2 weeks. I'm very confident, to borrow that. I know it's trademark, Mr. Supervisor, but I am too extremely confident in our ability to come together as a board and have more constructive conversations and debate. And I think even some feedback from the podium that comes from residents will subside, because there is an ability to be, I think, fully engaged, and the board will have less animosity and less strife. And there are just much better days, I believe, ahead for us. And just the process over the last 2 weeks and listening to the feedback from the staff and the department heads and the residents, I think we're in a great direction. I also would like to close with appreciation to Mr. Siebert and extend my deep appreciation for your continued service to the township. I was very impressed by your letter to the board last month indicating that you were going to increase your fees, so you will now be about 40% below your competitors in terms of the hourly rate that you charge us, so thank you for that. Little joke, Mr. Siebert's been operating under the same hourly rate for I don't know how long, but really it is most appreciative, and thank you for your service. And also to Mr. Duchesne. He is just a superior HR resource for us. In talking with him in the past 2 weeks, I know there's been some frustration there. I know that you too share a deep respect and appreciation for our new supervisor, and I think there will be massive amounts of just improvements in a number of areas, most importantly the communication that we share on this board. So thank you for nice debate tonight, and also to the individuals indicated they were interested in serving in some capacity as our interim supervisor, particularly you, Mr. Wharton. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Supervisor.
Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. I want to stay on a positive note. The last item we had here, the bridge. Sometimes words are like bullets. They slide out there. You wish you could have them back. I apologize. Record will show it's a 6-1 vote. My heart wasn't in that one. It slipped out. $246,000 over the initial cost. Trustee LaFada last year explained, we had discussions about all these meetings, but he presented an interesting option to it about going with concrete versus the longevity of the bridge. Moving forward, I think we'll be watching expenditures, see if we have sudden increases in them as projects come due. Stay on a more positive note as far as the replacement process for supervisor. I think a day or so after Supervisor Acciavatti made his announcement, I received a call from an individual who was most interested in applying. I don't believe that person didn't, so the word was out there. The word was out there. We did have 5 candidates. I would hope that Mr. Wharton and company, that please stay involved, keep us focused, keep us grounded. Trustee LaFada, Mr. Speaker, and the other speakers. And finally, thank you for the, Mr. Gildeneric, I always goof the name up. Thank you for the information on the monarchs and Mr. Joseph's famous milkweed. Thank you.
Trustee Demink.
It was a good meeting. Different seeing everybody. Jim Ellis, good seeing you again. My mentor who broke me into politics in 2004. It'll be coaching Brad. Brad, I wish you the best of luck. It'll be great working with you. We'll continue on. It was good seeing Mr. Markowski here. He left. I haven't seen him in a long time, but you come to a lot of meetings. Mr. Gundenalik, good seeing you. I'd just like to say, when Dan announced like 3 weeks ago that he's going to be leaving, my phone lit up. David called me with a smart comment, but a lot of people, Wendy Jones, Linda also called me. I'd like to thank all the people that threw support my way and wanted me to go for the position. There's a lot of business people. I thought about it, and Brad and I talked a lot. I'm happy being a trustee. I'll work with Brad. Like I say, I've been up here now 17 years. I got 3.5 years to go in this term. But those who called me and said, hey, you should think about it, Scott. I thought about it, but I'm better off where I'm at. I'm 63 years old, and I'm going into the retirement mode. And I'll sit back and watch Brad and see how much more gray hair he gets. I still got you beat with dark. Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Congratulations again, Brad. Looking forward to continued work with you in a new way. And thank you to everyone for being here. And I think tonight, the outcome of our meeting tonight shows that the laws and the processes we have in place here in the state of Michigan and Chesterfield Township do work. And government will continue, and the services that our residents need and look forward to will also continue. Thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my staff from this week. It's been a very challenging week for them in the office, dealing with the influx of absentee ballot applications that have come in addition to needing to manage this unique situation. Out of the 6 staff members in the clerk's office, 3 are certified. Certification is not an easy thing to do. It is a 3-year commitment, much like college. And when clerks are certified, there's usually a very big ceremony and a lot of recognition from other professional certified clerks. And we are very fortunate in Chesterfield to have half of our staff to have achieved that recognition. And we have another staff member who has just begun that process this week and is at Institute. And that is our election coordinator, Mary Gomez. So good luck to Mary up at Clerks Institute. But we did have some difficulties with our staff this week, just in managing all of the chaos, but that is what clerks do. We are used to that. We do it on a daily basis, and one of the things that we are privileged and honored to do as professional clerks is we bring order to chaos, we bring clarity where there's confusion, and we bring process-driven solutions where there's problems. And that is something, again, we are trained to do, and that is what they did this week, and they did it under great stress, and I want to thank them very, very much for performing with a high level of professionalism and serving the residents of Chesterfield Township in a way that we can all be proud. Thank you so much.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Tonight, I'm honored to be able to meet Mr. Ellis. Mr. Kirsten speaks quite highly of you often, and it is a pleasure to meet. Thank you for coming up and shaking my hand and introducing yourself tonight. Trustee Joseph, I want you to know that a lot of people may not realize, but 2 of my children are here in the audience, the 2 girls that look like me, and I'll claim them. And when Mr. Jenderalik, when you spoke tonight about the milkweed and the monarchs and butterflies and shared stories like that, one of them, I just watched her hold on to your every word. She's never heard stories like that. And when there's disinformation shared about such things like milkweed and butterflies, which are just harmless things that are beautiful and that we value. And you heard my daughter speak tonight about the value that my daughter Naomi, those were her words about what you bring to your vision for the parks and for pathways and things like monarch butterflies. That makes a big difference. Here as adults, oftentimes we forget the impact that we have on children. I don't know if you guys realize that there's actually 3 butterfly gardens at Brandenburg Park. I've driven by them a million times, and it wasn't until just recently I came in and I got out of my car to shut the gate as I went over to see how the progress was, and there's 3 gardens right there. So if there's anybody out there that is willing to help us get those back up and looking beautiful again, that would be very appreciated. Trustee Joseph, you spoke words tonight, and those words mean more than you know to my family and to those 2 girls that are sitting there. So I thank you for that. Mr. Kirsten, I look forward to spending lots of time working with you and learning and growing together. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. I'm full of pride and happy for Director Kirsten and our township. Good hands moving forward. I get a little emotional up here because there's a lot of up-and-coming public servants. This is something that we need more of, and you need more of the right people to serve. Naomi, I'm just continue to be impressed with all of it, your public speaking and the way you present yourself, and all the other candidates that have, or individuals that put themselves out there to submit a letter of interest. And the reason is it's hard to actually move a community forward. 1 gallon of motor oil can contaminate 1 million gallons of fresh water. 1 gallon contaminates 1 million gallons. So when you see public members, most of the time those can be dismissed, spread misinformation, disinformation, outright lies over and over again, it doesn't lead to moving our community forward. So hence I push back. And that, when it makes its way up to elected board members who pile onto that misinformation, disinformation, you can end up with a stagnant community, a community that doesn't have sidewalks and road improvements and park improvements. Now, we can have a discussion and a debate, and that's what this is for, if you want sidewalks, and if you want paths, and if you want to preserve the nature center, or the Salt River Golf Course, or the Salt River floodplain. Most communities have very good debates and discussions about the issues and the topics. But the disinformation, if I could give any advice to the board moving forward, is you got to stop even the one drop or even the 1 gallon of disinformation, because that's motor oil that will destroy our greatest natural resources. That's the analogy. And that one drop of disinformation, I would urge you to keep pushing back time and time again. And if it contaminates this board, like it has in the past, we will be stagnant for a long, long time. But I am full of optimism. We have got strong budgets and a lot of very, very good things in front of us. Our next board meeting is June 8th or June 22nd at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by trustee DeMake, support by treasurer Elliott to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. We are adjourned.